My first recollection with real art was when, as a child, my father took me to the Prado Museum for the first time. Those impressive works of art left me in awe. It was a window that would open for what was to be my passion and my profession for the rest of my life. I still have the vivid memory of going into this big room in this vast museum. There was this immense painting by Goya, The Crockery Seller. I took a glance and saw how the crockery shone. I held my breath. I wanted to pick it up. It looked real. How did they do it? I got nearer the painting, nearly hitting it with my nose, as in disbelief that anyone could paint so realistically. How did this plate shine? My question was quickly answered. A blob of pure white paint. That was the trick. A blob of white paint onto the gray-colored round shape. Never would I have imagined that in later years I would be well known as an artist for painting china. Even at this young age, I understood that painting is magic, and that artists are magicians that make you believe that a flat surface is anything but that. The difference between being an artist by profession and being in any other profession is that you can choose to be a lawyer, you can choose to be a doctor or a dentist or a teacher. You cannot choose to be an artist if God has not provided you with that gift. For whatever reason, God chose to give me this wonderful gift. Or maybe, could it have been my father, whose wonderful artistic gene and passion for art was passed on to all his daughters? Well, whether it was God or Daddy Almighty, I am very thankful. By the age of 10, I was sent to art lessons with well-known local artist Lenny Mifsud. Lenny lived in this quirky two-story house in Horse Barrack Lane. Her passion for art was infectious. This probably had a greater effect on me than her actual teaching. The house must have been no more than 3 meters wide. The studio was small and narrow, almost like a corridor, fitting no more than 3 pupils at a time, all sitting towards the window with green shutters. And talking about green, my first lesson with this small dynamic woman was painting a still life that had a green bottle she had placed in front of me. I had no choice. So, without another word from her, I looked down at the colors I had and found some green. So, green bottle, green paint. My new teacher would be so pleased. How wrong I was. I heard a strong voice behind me, nearly making me jump from my seat. No, this is not the right green. You have to mix it and find the right tone. My cheeks flared up in embarrassment. How could I have been so stupid? Well, I think this must have left an impression on me. To this day, the only green in my palette is Viridian green, a sea green which one cannot mix. There are no other greens at all in my color palette. I mix them with different blues and yellows and add reds for a more olivey color. I have been teaching art now, for 37 years. And on their first arrival, my pupils, whatever their age, are taught to mix green. I cannot remember exactly when it was that I started to paint in oils. I do remember, however, my first encounter with a studio, or should I say lack of one. I set up paints and easels in my posh dressing room, which Mum had so lovingly decorated for the girls with the help of Professor Boselli, an Italian interior designer who was fashionable at the time. The room had plenty of light. It also had expensive turquoise velvet curtains. I thought this was a great place to start a painting and try my hand at being a professional artist. When I was all set up and working, my father walks into the room. The delight in his face said it all. I have to mention that my father was a frustrated artist all his life. Not because he was not good at art, but precisely because he was very good. He had been forced to go into the family business and could not pursue his dream of becoming an artist by profession. Daddy leaves the room and lets me get on with it. Maybe this is the beginning of my young daughter's great things to come, he must have thought. Well, great things did come, and sooner than he had expected. My mother, his wife, comes in. No, she was not a happy woman, thinking of the risk that her precious velvet curtains and gilded chairs were in. I was asked to stop immediately. I started packing up, my moment of inspiration vanishing by the second. A while later, Dad comes in again to find that the masterpiece that his darling daughter was creating had totally vanished from the room. The room's atmosphere had changed. It was back to its former glory, impeccable Versailles-style dressing room. I felt the Capodimonte angels on the ceiling lamp mischievously grinning at me. Weren't you painting? Father asks. Yes, but Mum made me stop because the curtains were going to get dirty, I say with a beautifully mastered sad face and a half sob with no tears, well knowing that hell was going to break loose. And hell indeed did break loose. I shall not go into detail of what happened next, although I have it vividly in my mind. All I can say is, my poor Mum. The consequence of this event, however, was very positive indeed. To this day, I have always had a studio to paint in. I have fond memories of painting with my sisters, the three of us sharing a studio. My father, together with my brother-in-law, was starting to build property in Gibraltar. They used to buy old buildings, pull them down, and develop. We were thrilled with this new activity of theirs, not because we cared about finances, but because we benefited studio space. Whilst in the process of planning and dealing with formalities, we were allowed to paint in these empty houses, and Dad and Louis threw us out when ready for demolition. I recall one particular property had lots of rooms, so we chose one studio each. Every room gave onto a large paved patio with flagstones and shaded by mature trees. A neighbor, an elderly lady, would kindly give us tea and Jacob's cream crackers at the end of the day's work. That was the best tea and crackers I have ever tasted, a mixture of tea time and satisfaction all rolled into one. Being the youngest of the three sisters, I went along with what the other two decided. So, when they decided that by now we were ready to show the world our accomplished art and go to swinging London, I had no option but to go along with it. I was 18 and inexperienced as an artist. But I must say, however, that even at that young age, my style of attention to detail was already very apparent. My star paintings were a series of small works depicting raw eggs in clay dishes, their delicate broken shells beside. The clay dishes shone. they could almost be picked up, like the ones in Goya's painting at the Prado. The London press came to the opening, photographers flashing everywhere. Who were these beautiful, exotic young artists? It was a good story, Three Sisters. Next day, a full 2 pages with our photograph was splashed in the Evening Standard. We had chosen very carefully what to wear. It was hippie chic. Long ethnic dresses with flowy sleeves, our eyes brimming with kohl. You know the kohl, the Moroccan kohl. We knew we looked the part. Being the most normal thing in the world, that day we took the underground, totally forgetting our newfound stardom of the previous day at the opening. It was the time when everyone that traveled by underground read the Evening Standard, not like now that people read their mobiles. People were looking into the newspaper and staring back at us. It seemed the whole carriage was staring, curious eyes in disbelief. Suddenly, it dawned on us why. My teenage years were with a closed frontier situation. I was young, I was carefree, I was eager to live, and I wanted to spread my wings. I lived in London for a while and enjoyed my time there in Hampstead, which was very arty at that time. My sister and I used to go to a vegetarian place called Serrano's. Serrano's was a melting pot of interesting characters, and Jane and I used to take our sketch pads and sketch the bohemian atmosphere every night. But somehow, the romantic in me wanted something else. I had started to visit Milan as I had made good friends with some Milanese I met in Marbella, where we spent our summers, having to go first through the uncomfortable journey via Tangiers to get across in the Franco regime. I started falling in love with Italy, its people, its customs, its art, its language. I wanted to be in this country for longer. I had heard that Florence was a beautiful city, full of art, the core of Renaissance Italy, where it had all happened. The powerful Medici family, I wanted to see it all. I wanted to live it all. One day, I packed a suitcase and decided to set up in Florence. I was lucky that Jane didn't want to be left behind, so we set off together. My time in Florence was one of the happiest in my life. We lived in a flat in Piazza Pitti, overlooking Palazzo Pitti. I was in the middle of it all, and it's where I wanted to be. Apart from learning the language, I learned about the old masters and their techniques. How I loved those Botticellis in the Uffizi, his elegant, slender figures with chiseled faces, his outlined paintings, something unheard of at that time. I made lots of friends. I still have friends to date. I have contact with some. Italy still has a pull for me. I visit Venice often. I cry when I arrive and also when I leave. Venice has been a great source of inspiration for me. More specifically, the Murano glass. How many glass paintings I have done. The multicolored chandeliers with swaying arms I painted got me into the world-renowned opera gallery in Venice. What a joy to see my work hanging beside Picasso. And because I haven't been able to bring my chandeliers, I have brought you something that gives you an idea of what it is. Is it 15 minutes? Oh, yes, I haven't realized.
I'm afraid so.
Sorry.
Well, thank you very much, and a nice way to end there with that, Willa. Thank you very much, Willa Vasquez.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.